few years ago, I was talking to my neighbor across the yard, and he asked me what my first concert was that I ever went to. Back in the late 70s, my mother took me to my first live show ever. It was Sha Na Na. I loved their TV show back in the 70s, and they happened to be coming around Philadelphia, and were performing at a place called the Valley Forge Music Fair. Dr. Hook was the opening act, and then Sha Na Na came onto the stage. I don't remember much of the concert, but I do remember the excitement level and the fact that I was seeing some of my heroes live. After that quick conversation with my neighbor, thinking about the first concert I ever went to, it made me start thinking of all the subsequent concerts I went to. So after reflecting upon this, I started to write down every single performer that I had ever seen that I could remember and had an impact on me in some way. Well, I started on pen and paper, and the list became long, and there was no sense of order to the list. So what I did is I transferred it to Google Sheets, and I listed them alphabetically. I've also asked my students to start doing this. Some of my young students, I'll say, play with more enthusiasm, play with more energy, watch your posture, etc. And eventually they say, well, how do you know all this stuff? And I'll say, well, I saw so-and-so play this live, and this is how they would have done that. Here's a great story, and if any of you are of my age, you'll probably be able to identify with this. I was lucky enough to see Phil Collins numerous times when he came through Philly. I saw him at the Vet, I saw him at the Spectrum, maybe twice, I forget. And his famous drum solo on In the Air Tonight, seeing that live is like nothing else. Well, I always tell my students this. You listen to the recording, the studio recording is great, iconic, one of the most famous recordings ever, and all of us love to air drum, and we drummers love to go and actually play on the drum set and pretend we're Phil Collins. But seeing him perform it live, the last time I saw him was in the Spectrum, and what happened was they had done some very upbeat song prior to In the Air Tonight, and the upbeat song stops, it's reverberating, all of a sudden the house lights get really low, and it gets creepy, and that guitar comes in, that iconic guitar sound in the beginning of In the Air Tonight. And everyone knows what's gonna happen, and it's palpable. You can literally feel the excitement growing in the stadium, everyone's cheering and going crazy. Well, I was in the 12th row on the floor, directly in front of his drum set. And the song starts, and all of a sudden you hear Phil's voice, but you don't see him. So he's singing the beginning of the song, and then all of a sudden, way up in the rafters, there's Phil singing the opening line to In the Air Tonight with a single spotlight on him, and his drums are illuminated a little bit. You can see like the silhouette of the drums. It was very cool staging. So anyway, he's singing, he has his wireless thing on, that iconic wireless mic he had on. And for me, and I think most people in that audience, he starts singing it, and we're like, Phil, you're so far away from the drums. How are you gonna get there? That excitement can't be reproduced on a video or an audio recording. Definitely not an audio recording, because you're not seeing anything. So I'll never forget the excitement level, because he slowly was going through the stage. It was all choreographed. He knew what he was doing. But everyone's like, is he going to make it to the drums? And at the very last instant, he sits down and he destroys. The whole place goes crazy. That's what you get in a live performance that you can't by simply listening to music. Because I'm guilty too. I'm always telling my students, go listen, listen, listen. Yes, that's important. But I think equally important, and maybe more, is going and seeing these performers live. Now, if you look at my list, the link is below this video. There's a hyperlink right to my website. It's called Who Have I Seen Live? They're in alphabetical order, and over time, as I remember more, I just keep adding them. I share that with my students. I'm like, look at all these people. I said, you want to get a list like that, because I draw from all of them. I try to glean something from every one of these performers. Simon Rattle, Sir Simon Rattle, the great conductor. To see him live, conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, no words can describe that. And you'll notice on the list, I don't just have bands, orchestras, and musicians. I also have other meaningful performances that have impacted me in some way. Growing up, I lived right outside of the Naval Air Station at Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. And every year, the Navy's flight team, the Blue Angels, would do a show directly over my parents' house. I was blown away. For a little bit, up to high school, I thought I was going to be, a Blue Angels pilot. Top Gun was popular, so that's all I wanted to do was fly planes and all that business. But life took me in another direction. But why are the Blue Angels on the list? I was so impressed with the accuracy and the performance level of these jet pilots that I started doing a deep dive, and I would watch documentaries on the Blue Angels. How were they able to do this, and make it look easy? And one thing I'll never forget in one of the documentaries, it said when they start practicing their routines in winter, January, February out in California, when the planes are flying and doing their maneuvers, they're 3 feet apart, going hundreds of miles an hour, no less. They said because of their practice regimen and their attention to detail, by the end of the season, I think October, they're 18 inches apart. That's as big as a crash cymbal. Blew my mind, okay? So as a musician, what can I do? Look at the level of accuracy and how they keep tweaking and fine-tuning so that in 7 months will I be able to get that much better on whatever task I'm trying to do, when it concerns accuracy. And you'll notice I have some comedians on there. Jerry Seinfeld, watching videos of him is great. The TV show was great. But being right there in the audience when he's giving a joke, nothing like that. And the other thing that Seinfeld and all these comedians really impressed upon me after watching interviews and documentaries on these folks is that they make the improvisatory nature of their jokes seem like it just popped into their head. But I watched a documentary about Jerry Seinfeld called The Comedian. He was kind of the protagonist in this, in a journey through the comedy world. And he said, 5 minutes on David Letterman or The Tonight Show with Fallon or whoever these comedians are trying to get on the show with, they said 5 solid minutes of material is 6 months on the road every night in a club, tweaking and refining to get 5 minutes of gold. And I think as a musician, we can all equate that to our own product that we're trying to get to the public. So, the challenge to you, make your own list. List any performances that you've seen. Friends of mine have done this. I've inspired them to do it, and they've put great athletes they've seen. I don't follow sports that much, but hey, if an athlete's performance has inspired you, put them on the list. If you got to see, if you got to see Michael Phelps swim in person, that would be mind-blowing. So put people like that on. Make the list personal for you and your students too. And go through the list and see how these people are influencing you in your performances and your music making. I just shared a few of the benefits of making this list that have impacted me. I could go on and tell you, as I look down the list, what did this performer do for me? Seeing this person live, seeing Doc Severinsen live with the Tonight Show Band, 10 feet in front of me, playing in the pouring rain, had an indelible impact on me as a musician, etc., etc., etc. So it's going to be something personal for you, but I think the exercise of writing down every performer you've seen live is going to help you, your students, and your music making. All right, folks, thanks.